we brought in a contractor, so I followed him around for like three hours total, I think, yesterday. Just trying to get a handle on it.
Okay, I think we're going to start the Budget Advisory Committee meeting, June 24th, 2025. Call to order. Peter Eckel, Budget Advisory Committee.
Laura Cooper, Budget Advisory Committee.
Jay Knight, Budget Advisory Committee.
Tyson Thornburg, Budget and Financial Analyst.
Kevin Ingles, Director of Finance.
Victor Rochelle, Director of Public Works.
Dave Jackson, Chief of Police.
Sam Spender, Deputy Chief.
All right, and can I get a motion to approve
There's
the...
two folks online.
Oh, Nevin, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Nevin Moundle, Budget Advisory Committee.
Thank you.
Tim Dodd, Deputy City Manager.
Thank you, Tim. All right. Can I get a motion to approve the budget meeting from May 27th?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Seconded.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, what we call new business, although it's not completely new business. Review the sales and use tax audited 24 expenditures in order to verify the spend in accordance with the 2022 voter approved ballot measure. So I think what we're going to do is let the police department and Public Works present to us what was sort of an adjusted outcome from where we were last year and what we discussed last time. And I think we'll just have an open discussion. So, thank you.
So this is just an intro slide that kind of gives some information about the dedicated sales and use tax. So in November 2022, Inglewood voters authorized a 0.3% increase, so that was 0.2% to fund street repair and maintenance programs under Public Works, and 0.1% for alternate policing services under the police department. And then the Budget Advisory Committee serves as the citizen committee tasked to review the expenditures funded by the voters.
Thank you, Tyson.
So this is just quickly, this is the exact ballot language that was approved. And then we'll turn over to Public Works.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Tyson. And just to confirm real quick, folks online, can you see the slides?
Yes, I can.
Okay, fantastic. So this is a review of the Public Works expenditures for last year, 2024. So in 2024, the dedicated sales use tax came in just a hair above 2.2 million. And was used in pavement zones 1 and 3, including streets and alley maintenance, crack seal, and we'll get into some details that you've asked for in the past, the committee's asked for, and cover that. Next slide, please. So breakdown, again, the total project cost, this is not just sales and use tax, we have PIF dollars, the Public Improvement Fund dollars, that we add to that. We spend the sales tax use first, and then we keep going beyond that. We're trying to do as much as we can within the city. We spent 2.8 million in change in 2024. Again, the second point there, the sales and tax revenue was 2.2. So we spent all of that and then some. And then we have a breakdown here of the cost. So the 2024 mill and overlay was 1.9 million. Notice please the asterisk that there was a 26,000 expenditure that closed out in the 2023 dollars. We got the final invoice and retainage that we paid out in 2024. We did slurry seal, which was crack seal only this year, for 172,000. The concrete associated with the work, we go in and we approve the ramps around where we're milling, and that's to make sure we're in ADA compliance and we're following the Department of Justice's requirements when we modify the street, which milling qualifies as modifying. So we'll make sure we're in compliance with that. We spent a little over 568,000, and then we've completed a pavement assessment to see where we're at for 116,000. Just a quick note on the pavement assessment, we are planning on doing a presentation to council in the next month or two to bring that forward and say, okay, here's where we were, here's all the money we've spent, here's where we're at, and we're going to keep going. But we want to keep track and make sure we're seeing that pavement condition index, that PCI, increase throughout the city as we use the sales tax dollars plus PIF dollars, and we're making these improvements.
And Director Rochelle, that pavement assessment presentation is what date, just so we can make sure?
I don't have it nailed down just
Okay.
yet. The team is working on the presentation, but we will absolutely share that with the committee
Okay.
as soon as it's available.
And the pavement assessment is citywide,
Correct.
and its purpose is to specifically say, hey, our roads need repair here, here, and there, and is there anything else that goes beyond?
Yeah, great question. It does a couple things for us. It tells us where we need to go. Hey, we need to go spend some money. Hi. Over here, and this condition's gotten worse in accelerated fashion, or maybe it's maintained. And then it also gives us an overall condition for the city. So our goal is we want to see these road conditions improve over time. So it allows us to track that as well. It shows our progress that citywide we're making progress on the conditions of our roadway.
And without getting too into history, is this an improvement on how we've done this in 10 or 20 years past?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So from multiple angles, one, we're spending more money improving our roads. We have this voter-approved sales tax money to improve the roads. So we want to show, we're having the conversation here today, but we also want the data to show, hey, our OCI, PCI is increasing, our condition index is increasing across the city as we make these improvements.
Thank you for the explanation.
Absolutely. Next slide. We graded in 2024, the earlier slide, we graded 44 alleys and used the asphalt millings that went in there to help improve the conditions in those. And all the alleys that were done are highlighted in green. Next slide. And I apologize, this may be a little difficult to read on the screen. It should be in the packet and available on the website, but we provided a breakdown of every street we did and the cost per street to mill and inlay those streets.
And I was seeing that as that $1 per yard or what's that?
It's $1
Oh,
per square yard.
Square yard.
Yes. And so that includes milling, and it includes, we do what's called a tack coat. So you mill it off, you scrape off that top layer, you put down a small layer, they call it a tack coat. It's an oil-based product that allows the new pavement to adhere to the old. We pave it, and then we come in, and then we stripe, and there you get your
I
new
have
road.
walked over one of the tack coats once. It
Don't do
wasn't
that.
super hot by the time I got to it, and the guy's like, yeah, right across Broadway.
It-
But yeah,
It's not kind on shoes. I
No,
don't
it's
recommend it.
not, and I knew that, I took the risk. So let me ask you a question, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
So I see 15 South Broadway, I see actually a couple for 15 South Broadway, and then I guess that's both north and south. And then I see at over, call it 5.5 to 6 per square yard, and then I also see Inglewood Parkway at like 5 and some change per square yard.
Right.
I assume that's concrete and or some additional roadway infrastructure that has to be adjusted for.
Correct, and the width of the road. Some roads are 2 lane plus
Okay.
turn lane, some roads are just 2 lanes.
Right,
That's
but
why.
technically the square yard would account for the width, right?
Correct.
Okay.
It should account for the width, and but then you got the length. So
Got it.
when you multiply that out, that's why you get the variation in there.
Okay, thank you.
Some roads are striped a little different, some had a little more concrete, and some, we may have done what's called deep patching as part of it too. So if we see a crack and we mill it off and the crack is still there, that means it's no longer a surface crack only, it's now a deep crack. And what we want to do is go cut that out and dig that and patch it so that we don't see cracks come back in the future all the way back to the surface. So there are some, what I'll call ancillary repairs that are calculated into this, and it just depends on the condition of the roadway.
Hey, Nathan, read out, we're glad to have you.
Next slide, please. And slurry seal, as I touched on a minute ago, we only did crack seal this year. So, and that's where we go in and we seal the cracks in the street. And the idea there is we're preserving the surface course. We're trying to keep the water out. In the summertime, you get expansion. In the wintertime, you get that contraction plus the freezing. And that freeze-thaw cycle, especially in the winter, can be really tough on roads as snow packs into cracks, especially deep cracks. That really it can cause alligatoring and all kinds of other challenges in the roadway. Now, the reason why we only did crack seal, you might be asking, we're coordinating heavily with lead service line. So we didn't want to slurry and then have lead service come in and tear it all up. There is a difference. Slurry seal is substantially cheaper, but our concern was that in the eyes of the public and the fact that they would be tearing it up potentially, there's not a difference. We didn't want to put something down, either mill and pave or slurry seal, and then have it come right back out. So crack seal was seen as a way to still preserve the condition of the roadway so it didn't degrade anymore, and keep that water out until we can get lead service out of the way and come through.
Sure. Well, and from the budget committee standpoint, tell me if you disagree, but obviously we want to preserve as much capital and replacement dollars as possible. And so just for the public's awareness, I hope that we're taking the measures to not have to repeat work.
Absolutely. Not only that, but we don't want to be, speaking of memes, like we were talking about earlier, you see memes all the time where it's like a brand new paved road and then, I don't know, there's a huge hole dug in it for whatever reason. I mean, things certainly happen. Water breaks we can't control. But things that we can't control, we are absolutely trying to do that to minimize doing things twice or wasting taxpayer dollars. We want to do it once, we want to do it correctly and do it efficiently.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. So concrete work, the blue dots there represent all the concrete work that we did. And as I touched on earlier, we upgraded a bunch of ramps as part of this and some other minor repairs, but this is primarily going to be your handicap ramps, which are triggered by the milling per direction from the Department of Justice's. Milling is considered a roadway modification. And then the pavement assessment, well, we touched on it a little while ago, but we did that citywide last year at a little over 116,000. And we do plan to come to council with that information, with background from where we were, all the steps we've taken, the zones we've hit, the dollar we've spent, and then where we are today based on that pavement condition index.
Is this assessment, I'm sure we have some experts, but is this pavement assessment something that we can do on our own in the future?
We don't have the technology and the equipment. It takes a very sophisticated piece of equipment, multiple pieces of equipment. It's typically a van. They have various forms of LiDAR and scanning technology that allow to check cracks across the entire road as they drive down it. So it's kind of not quite the same thing as a Google van. It's a little more sophisticated than that. They have a bunch of equipment. They drop out the back and kind of roll real slow down the roads and check them for us. It would be something that we plan to continue to do on a regular basis. Again, it gives us data on where we need to go if we're missing stuff, and things accelerate in deterioration, and then also gives us essentially a grade on how we're doing as a city. Are we seeing our pavement condition index come up?
I have seen ours is a little lower than Cherry Hills, but they also don't have giant trucks driving through the neighborhoods over there, and they don't have a street called Broadway either.
Yeah, they have a lot less roads.
How far out, how many years out does this assessment look and give recommendations?
So it gives us a snapshot in time. It tells us, okay, as of today, here are your roads. And then what we do is we take that data, we compare it to the last one, and we say, okay, one, we're doing a spot check. We want to make sure, we want to validate the data. So we kind of cherry pick a few of them when we validate the data. Okay, it crosses and checks the validation mark. And then we do a mass comparison. Okay, all the streets, what are all the streets now? That shows us our average improvement over time. And then at the same time, it tells us the street's getting worse. And then we put that into our analysis and go out into the field. Every street that's being paved, we go out before we put it on the list and field verify it with our engineers and our street maintenance team.
Thank you. I'll try not to ask more questions about that. We'll look forward to your presentation for sure.
Yeah, we're excited to get that wrapped up and bring that forward to everybody. Excellent. That's it for pavement, relatively straightforward-ish.
Pretty important.
Yes.
How much, just generically speaking, how much can you quantify? Or maybe there's another way to say, hey, the $2.208 million has helped us this much.
We're hoping to put some analysis together in the presentation to come to that. What we anticipate, and don't quote me on this because we haven't finished the calculations yet, that we're tackling our worst streets. So we're going to see the curve's going to be pretty steep in increasing our OCI, PCI right out the gate. And then as we start to cross off or check off our worst streets and make those improvements, we'll see it start to level off a little bit. Still increasing, but maybe not at quite the rapid rate that we're seeing in the beginning.
What do we need beyond what we have from Public Works to validate that the sales and use tax for road repairs is being used correctly? Or do we have what we need? I mean, I feel like we have the map, we know where they were done, we have the cost per square yard, we know the ancillary amount above that sales and use tax that funded the first dollar in.
Seems pretty straightforward.
I agree.
Yeah, certainly happy to provide any additional information you need, answer questions, whatever you got.
Thank you. I think in the next 2 to 3 weeks, post Independence Day, we're going to be writing the report, and there may be some questions there, but I think this will get us going. And Tyson, we obviously will have access to this, so we can, I assume, use the roadway map and some other things.
Absolutely.
Add some exhibits.
And if you need additional information or you need a zoomed in that's not on the slide deck or something, we're happy to provide it.
Great. And is there something that's a little, well, we have actually the presentation you gave in March or April,
Yes,
so we can use that as well.
you can use that as well.
Great, thank you.
This one's a little more refined because we have the final numbers in it, and it gives you that breakdown. When we met last time, there was a request for a breakdown cost per street. We want to make sure we provided that, and then give a very detailed breakdown on where all the money went.
That's great. Thank you for doing that. Chief Jackson, Deputy Chief Fender.
Even if I look over here, the other day, this is how old I am. I put my shirt on in the morning and I cranked my neck, and now I can't turn like this. So if I look over here and I look like Frankenstein, that's the way it's going for me this week so far.
Not a workman's comp.
Sorry, not a workers' comp or anything like that.
Sure we know that.
Sorry to hear.
That's okay.
That's not comfortable.
Let me see if I can see this bigger on my.
And we know this one was a little more challenging, just given what I'll generically say, the gray nature of policing and all the
Thank
tough
you for
things
that
we
reminder.
deal with.
It is, but I think it's really important work that all of these folks are doing. So
We agree.
going through this 1.1 million plus, this is just kind of bullet points at high level. We're going to go through each one of these bullet points and kind of break this down of what they actually do on a daily basis. And then we'll get into some of the equipment. And I think one of the things that you've asked for is, can we show that this is working in some way? And I think we do have a little bit of data on that as well. So next slide, please. This is just a continuation of some of the things from the first slide that we'll hit in our next slides. So we do have our All Health, we contract with the All Health network for our co-responders. See, if you've been watching some of the city council meetings, you'll know that that's probably going to be folded under into the police department next year, just because of the way the grant is being allocated by the state. It's going to be going directly to the police department as opposed to a provider.
And we just for clarity, that provider, their service will be in-house? Or they will still remain as a third party?
I think just to be a little bit more clear than that, since they're coming in, we'll have to do a job search and make that open. But yes, basically, we'll have 2 co-responders out of that. Next. At the end of last year, you'll see Stacy Durbin came on. She has helped a lot with our community events, and specifically, if you look at the second paragraph, the drug take back, where we take leftover prescription drugs and they need to be disposed of in a specific manner, and just other public education events. CEPTED is crime prevention through environmental design, and we go to businesses or not-for-profits or various locations just to kind of talk about things that they could do with their structures, their locks, their windows, their doors, their entry points, their exit points. Specifically, there is one shelter that had some issues with people sleeping, so you can add some rocks and encourage them to sleep inside to certain areas. So that's kind of what the community relations and crime prevention manager does, but also just an awful lot of outreach and social media education. Next slide. Our zone police officers are assigned to the Civic Center. They're assigned right here. Their entire job is, and just as a reminder, I view traditional policing as somebody calls 911 and then an officer responds and maybe a detective follows up on the case. As we start talking about alternative policing, it's doing things other than that. It happens to be male police officers right now. So these two guys work in this Polaris every day, or they have a Polaris assigned to them. It kind of depends on what they're trying to do, but it's the quality of life issues that are surrounding this area, and they're dedicated to that full time. It's what they do 100% of the time. I think another thing that's interesting as we talk about alternative policing, they go to a call for service, they take a report, they put somebody in handcuffs and take them to a jail. And I think that it's important to note that we have a lot more services available, whether that's through restorative justice type programs, other court-related programs, but navigating them, even to a homeless shelter or a recovery house, navigating that in a way that makes sense and not just using the hammer of jail. And that's what we're trying to do, and we can talk a little bit more about it as we move through these slides.
Yeah,
Please.
I will say, sorry to interrupt you. The zone policing, I think this was one of the key elements for our group that we really wanted to identify. Nevin, do you have anything that you wanted to add about that?
I think just based off of my memory last year, I think there were some questions about like what percentage of the time is on like specifically homelessness, addiction, and those issues specifically covered by the fund. I don't want to speak on the behalf of everybody because I don't think I know some of the other council members raised that as their concern. Is that what?
Yeah, I agree. I think though this is one of the definitions that fit into that was zone policing, because I think we didn't have an understanding of that. So to me, this sounds like this is dedicated service.
And maybe as we go through a couple of the other slides and we kind of break down some of what they're doing, maybe that'll help a little bit
I'll be patient.
with giving some context as to where we come up with this. Next slide, please. So here's where we have an impact team. For example, this is probably not specific to narcotics or homelessness or mental health. Yesterday, they located this kind of high profile for a while where at about Broadway and Quincy 6 weeks ago or so, there was a domestic violence situation where a guy violently pushed his girlfriend out of the car and had life-threatening injuries, and they thought she had been run over. They've been looking for this guy ever since, and they located him yesterday and got him arrested in Denver. That would not really fall in line with what we're talking about here. But they also did some surveillance operations right down the street and identified, it takes a while to do that, a few days of watching and several weeks actually of watching, where are these narcotics coming from? And they were able to identify somebody getting off the RTD, coming, going back, and it takes a while to watch this to see what apartment they're going to, but doing the surveillance, it's the same group of people, and finally getting enough probable cause to write a warrant and go in, and they made a huge fentanyl arrest, and off the top of my head, I can't remember what it was, but we've seen a specific decrease in the area of a lot of people getting fentanyl out of this one apartment that was just down the street.
Yeah,
It's right
specifically
here.
this team did, apologize for my voice. This team did 2 operations lately on literally trying to find the suppliers of the, that are specifically targeting our homeless population. And because they get their drugs, their fentanyl from somewhere. So they have made 2 very large arrests in the last probably 4 to 5 months. The last one being last week on people they know and saw supply our homeless population with fentanyl. And that, since they've taken those 2 people off the streets, that has noticeably decreased.
So Nevin, I guess what I just flag or highlight, I know that you're kind of speaking for other people that may not be here right now of how we do recognize that sometimes they're doing things associated with follow-up investigations for criminal activity, and then there are times that they get tasked with this other stuff. So that's kind of how we break that down, just to kind of juxtapose that and give some context.
I appreciate that.
And no, and I appreciate the feedback. Although I wasn't here last year, the feedback is understood. Next, please. They have a supervisor that does supervise them, and he spends most of, or about 25% of his time following up on those specific types of activities. And we'll get to a lieutenant right after this, which is the next rung up the chain of command. And he has a little bit even more specific time. Those two, based on days off and scheduling and things that they have to do back and forth, they can kind of allocate their work out a little bit between the 2 of them. But the lieutenant also is very involved. In addition to all the other things I've mentioned, he's also on the Good Neighbor Agreement with Movement 5280, and is also our liaison to do all of the movement, all of the meetings that are associated with neighbors, mediators, and issues associated with Movement 5280. So he has it as part of his job, is very specific to that.
Great.
And of course, our dispatcher. So I think it's important to note is, and this could be a whole other discussion, but as we see the future of policing and what is that going to look like 5 years ago to now to 5 years from now, what is this all going to look like? As we get mobile response units, co-responders, and some other full-time employees, somebody has to dispatch all of those and corral those. You can kind of see in her picture, that's a picture of her computer, which is computer-aided dispatching. And as she's taking all of those calls, making all of the notes, who got called, what was the call about, we also task them later if a citizen has a question or an elected official has a question and we need to go back before the body camera what this call was when it came in, they also provide all that. So I think sometimes people think that our dispatchers are tasked only with answering the call when it comes in from 911 and then dispatching the officer, but they do get tasked with a lot more administrative work as well. School resource officer, something that frankly we're attempting to expand that next year. I will say no matter what community meeting I go to, somebody always mentions Shaw Gifford. He's our school resource officer. I participated in a restorative justice circle about 6 weeks ago, and everybody, and there's probably 20 people from various parts of the community, and I think he may be the mayor someday, I don't know, but what he specifically does, which is really, really important, is, again, it's not just taking people to jail. He works very closely with Ames Stevenson, who's in charge of the restorative justice, and there's a lot of juvenile referrals to our restorative justice, especially when people are going through mental health crises or addiction things. So, and he also, just to be clear, he also attends the meetings and goes to a lot of meetings. He's not just there Monday through Friday or whatever days of the school. He does quite a bit more, and he was a really good track star in college, and he helps with the track coaching and does all kinds of stuff. So
It's good for the kids to have somebody that's involved in that level in his position.
100%, and they really like him there. And I think it's such a good program. It's one of the reasons why we're looking to expand it. It's been so successful there, and we'd really like to expand that. Sometimes, just like every other job, it's important to put the right person in there, and he has really done a fantastic job. one of the things about our co-responders is some of it's proactive and some of it is reactive, where they're going to calls for service, or they're just driving down the street and see somebody in crisis or in need. In order to do that safely, they have to be with a police officer when they respond on calls for service. So we do have 2 police officers. It's not always the same 2, but we do have 2 police officers who they embed with and patrol with in the police car as their shift. That's how that works out. Just some people sometimes have questions, and we do have some crisis intervention team officers that are specially trained in crisis intervention team. My previous agency, we had crisis intervention team officers. I'll talk to it a little bit more when we talk about the case manager in a minute, but I will say trying to teach a police officer how to be a mental health professional is very difficult. And I'm not sure that policing has figured out the exact right way to do this yet, but I think that this is better than what I came from. This program is better than trying to train the police officers to be CIT officers. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, they got a lot to do, just doing the policing.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, to me, some of this, we would hope, would help alleviate some of that, maybe noise isn't the right term, but go-between. But I don't know if that actually plays out. So.
I'll hit that when I get to the manager here. One of the things we do see sometimes with some encampments in the parks, we'll get to it also with the recreational vehicles and kind of the van life, if you will. We also have we do have issues with people that are experiencing homelessness, and they also have pets. And then the person experiencing homelessness needs to go get help. What do you do with the pets? And that is a big portion of their job, and that can be a difficult placement. So that's how they kind of get involved. Next, please. Same thing. We do get a lot of calls on large vehicles or recreational vehicles. That's kind of the specialty, and navigating through the towing, or whether it's on public property, private property. Has it been moved? Police officers, they're answering their calls for service. They can't really track all of that, and so that's how we have a parking person that they can be dedicated to that.
And Frida maybe will answer this question better than anyone, but have we been? I mean, haven't we been stepping up our parking? I'll call it parking management, policing, or I don't know what the proper term is, but. It seems that we've been ticketing more people for parking violations, let's call it, or unregistered vehicles.
And didn't we hire a parking enforcement officer specifically?
So that's what this position is, yeah, for sure.
That would describe.
So that's a full-time position for that parking enforcement officer, and they work throughout the entire city.
Okay.
I will say within the last couple of months, I do think that we've gotten a little bit more citizen input about we want this done, and so it's put our focus on it as well.
I won't tell about when my Jeep went past emissions for a couple of months, but it's registered now.
That's not parking.
Is it parked outside?
That's a moving violation. What color did you say it was?
Oh, it's registered. It's got the tags on it now.
I think you're safe. Abandoned vehicle officer, very similar.
Okay.
So one of the things, this is the case manager that will oversee, or that oversees the co-responders and our MRU, and she is frankly right now on baby leave, which is great. She'll be back later this summer, I think end of July.
3 weeks.
I'm counting the days, I bet.
I'm counting.
One of the things that that frankly, kind of going back to the CIT versus the co-responders, our case manager is a licensed master's degree social work. She speaks the language of mental health needs and addiction needs. She has 20 years of experience in this field. She's been here for 3 or 4 years.
She's been here since 2018 with All Health, that we brought her in-house.
So
2 years ago.
one thing that, and this is just a struggle that I deal with, well, is policing looks at criminal activity. And we speak crime, criminal justice. What is the crime that's been committed? And I think that if we forecast 5 years from now, policing will take on more, what's the word I'm looking for? Crime and quality of life issues. I think we're going to be taking on more quality of life issues, homelessness, addiction, drug use, those types of things. And it is nice to have somebody that speaks the language and that I can bounce things off of. I will say she's been gone for a few months, and I struggle sometimes finding good words to respond to either people in crisis or as it relates to homelessness, things that are maybe not traditional police activities. But she really helps navigate when she's here, and she's been missed since she's been on having a healthy baby. So as I kind of mentioned earlier, depending on what they're looking to do, sometimes a lot of times activities in parks or getting down alleyways or just kind of being, frankly, able to sneak up on people. We bought a Polaris Ranger UTV for our I was going to say code officer, zone officer, which is part of that program.
Public Works maintains it.
Yep, I've seen it in the shop.
Yeah.
We use it to patrol the Platte River, all the parks, things of that nature as well.
Yeah, we have quite a varied terrain here, don't we?
Yeah,
It is.
surprisingly.
And then 2 of our police cars to house the co-responders. And I think it's important also to note that just because when the co-responders are off, we're still handling these calls the best we can. It's just better with the co-responders. So I think that's just an important to note, and they can also do some of our follow-up. If an officer at 2 in the morning has something, they can relay that on later, and you'll kind of see that, I think, on the next slide. So 2 of our patrol cars are kind of dedicated to that.
So this is a metric board that All Health maintains, super busy. Realistically, the bigger numbers here is that in 2024, they responded to 760 incidents with the police department. Averages out to about 3 incidents a day with the police department is what that averages out to. That's just what they were specifically dispatched to. That doesn't encounter or take into effect all of the other calls for service that those officers are going to, where their subject matter expert de-escalation skills and crisis intervention come into play with victims of crimes, reporting persons, things of that nature that they're able to de-escalate. So that doesn't take that into account. So that number is, like I said, they're super busy. They keep a lot of statistics. And so we get those from them monthly.
And just for the group's benefit or solely mine, that 760 incidents is covered by what total dollar amount?
We pay approximately $147,000 a year for our co-responders. That's discounted, I guess would be a better word, because All Health right now, or in 2024, did receive the behavioral health grant money that subsidized that.
Which is a state fund?
Which is a state fund, which starting,
changing, right?
correct, starting in July, that goes directly to the police department. And it does not go to a third-party vendor, which is one of the reasons we're gonna use that to offset some costs, to bring our co-responders in-house.
Which, to me, I will say, to me, this looks like very good value.
We believe so.
Call it $200 an incident. I mean, that,
It's immeasurable when something could result in an officer-involved shooting because a
and then it might.
person in crisis and, escalates to the point an officer doesn't have the expertise to handle that. And then, that obviously goes into potentially losing a police officer to mental health issues or, litigious issues down the road, lawsuits, the loss of life, things of that nature. So to me, that's a small price to pay.
But no, I'm sure, I have no idea. I feel like this specific service for this incident count is really well managed.
That's fantastic, thank you.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
I'll go into a couple of calls for service. These are general metrics that can also be found in our annual report that's on the front page of the police department's website, which goes into a whole lot more detail than the slides that I provided. This kind of shows you a 5-year snapshot of all of our calls for service in the city. You can see that 2020 was the highest at about 59,000. We're at about 55,000 now in 2024. And that's all of our calls for service for the entire year. 2022 was our lowest out of all of those. The next slide is,
So
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I like the numbers. So that's called 162
About
calls a
160
day.
calls a day. And that's everything from calls for service that an officer is dispatched to, a call that an officer, a traffic stop, an officer initiated act, anything that a call for service is generated anytime an officer does anything. Could be an extra patrol, could be an arrest, could be anything, a welfare check.
A hit and run like
Hit
yesterday.
and run, literally anything.
Were you near there?
I just heard about it from someone that worked
Yeah.
who lives in the city.
Yeah, so and that's all calls for, so we do about 160 calls for service a day on average.
Wow, it's a lot of work.
Some of the other metrics I really wanted to point out are crimes against society, because this really encompasses most of our drug offenses, weapons offenses. I'll get into some other things. These are offenses that are counted by the Colorado Bureau of Investigations, which are reported to the FBI as what they call Group A offenses, meaning that it's a state offense for the most part. As you can see, comparatively to Commerce City, Littleton, Northglenn, Wheat Ridge, ours jumped quite a bit in 2024, and it was for a very good reason. It was because our officers were doing much more intense officer initiated activity. These are not calls for service. This is our officers initiating arrests and contacting people. And you'll see another slide that's coming up that shows that our arrests under crimes against society also rose that same amount. So not only did our reports go up that much more, our arrests went up that much more because our officers were contacting people out in public.
So just so I understand, so the crimes against society are offenses where it is under a state, potentially state, or must be state announced or under state jurisdiction and or federal?
State.
State only.
We don't make arrests for
Okay,
federal.
so these are all state offenses in Colorado?
Correct. So the Group A crimes, which this is pulled from, is all state offenses. You'll see another slide that talks about Group B offenses, and those are normally municipal offenses, which we'll also talk about a little bit.
Okay, so if someone has a drug offense or weapons, let's say they have both at one time, and then your department has to report this to the state, what bureau?
Yeah, to CBI, it's Colorado Bureau of Investigations, on a monthly basis, and that's reported on a dashboard under CBI.
And then you have, I guess, people who are still outstanding.
Oh, like outstanding arrests?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have some warrant arrests and things of that nature too, yeah, there are.
So then, we as the Inglewood Police Department, I guess this would have occurred in our city.
Yep, absolutely.
We then will have to go out without state help and make these arrests if there's an open warrant.
Warrants are a little bit different. Most of
Okay.
these are on scene where we
Got it.
physically take that person into custody at the time of the
Got it.
event.
So this is all happening in one
Correct.
minute.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, and it still does count where our impact team did do, like, for example, that large scale arrest they had a week or so ago. That would also be covered under this.
So why is it that Littleton has so much less crime than everybody else?
I actually did a council request on that, council person a couple of years ago, maybe less than that really outlines that specifically. It was very, very detailed in terms of what Littleton and Sheridan do in terms of what we do. And you will see in that, I don't have it right at the top of my tongue, but you'll see that we literally have double the amount of calls for service that Littleton has. Even though they're much, much larger geographically, we literally do double the amount of calls for service and double the amount of case numbers that like Littleton does.
So is it based on crimes that were arrested or whatever? I mean, if they don't make that many arrests, would that?
So I guess I would say two things could be true at once.
Yeah.
They don't get as many 911 calls, or maybe there's not as much domestic violence or disturbance calls or stolen cars or where people are calling 911. So
Okay.
that could be one bucket.
Mhm.
The other bucket is maybe their officers, I'm not throwing shade or anything, but maybe their officers aren't as proactive in looking for people that are committing crime. So both of those could be true at the
Could
same
be true,
time.
or the crime may be less.
It could be.
Could be
Yeah,
less.
absolutely.
My suspicion, and I was born and raised here, I've lived in Shreveport, Louisiana, I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and some other places, but I came back here 7 years ago because I love it here. And, you know, we have the big city Denver problems. And as far as anybody is concerned, unless you see the grass, the metal grass there on Broadway coming past Yale, you don't know any different. And so I feel like we have a lot of overlap from, call it big city problems that we have to deal with, which I would say would partly describe that variance, but that is of course subjective.
One of the things that happens with crime statistics, pardon me, is that the harder you work to address a specific crime problem, I'll say drugs, for example, the harder you work to do that, the higher your statistics are gonna go. So it's gonna look really bad, but it looks really bad for that small period of time, or even a couple of years, or maybe 3 or 4 years, because you are combating that so hard that you're making more arrests and having more reports for a drug offense. Our hope, and what we normally see, is when you hit a problem that hard for that amount of time, eventually the numbers will dip because it can't keep going up. So potentially you'll see a plateau at some point, and we'll see what that looks like this year. And we're hoping to see something that maybe goes up a little bit, but eventually down. But the reason it did do that is because if you look at 2021, our numbers were really, really low in that, and that had a lot to do with COVID. It had a lot to do with Senate Bill 217 and the loss of qualified immunity, and officers not doing as much officer-initiated activity because they were scared. And so I'm just being completely honest with you. And so I think that as the pendulum has swung another direction, a little bit more pro-law enforcement, you're seeing our officers reflect a much more pro-officer-initiated activity and getting that activity up and making more arrests.
So
Does that
then
track?
that could also mean that if we continue enforcement, the crime rate could go down because people will go someplace
hopefully
else.
that's
I
the
hate to say it, but
crime displacement.
that would be the whole
Yes.
point. Yeah, that's why we're trying to do that, and you don't want criminals to get comfortable in an area.
Right.
And they kind of get settled in, and then they think that it's their area, and you've really got to hotspot policing, focus on those areas, identify them correctly, analysis of what's going on and making that correct, and then taking the proper response action, and trying to get all of that aligned at the same time while you're answering calls for service can be difficult, but I would just also point out, you're exactly right. We have big city problems, and I don't mean to say not a big city budget, I'd just say, you know, all the issues that Denver faces, they have 2,200 employees,
They're down.
1,500 officers, plus their civilian staff,
Yeah.
that they have all of these units that can go out and do other things. And I could digress on this, but we do have all of the same issues, and it's just difficult to have the.
How do you in the metrics distinguish when you see a spike like this, maybe in crime rate? What are the other metrics that you're looking at to understand if that is a true like increase in crime versus
Arrests.
proactive? Okay,
Arrests.
so it is the arrest.
100% arrests.
Okay.
Yeah, if we just see a spike in motor vehicle thefts, but we don't see an increase in motor vehicle theft arrests, we know we have a pretty serious motor vehicle theft problem that we need to address and make more arrests.
Okay.
So that's where you really have to look for that balance in. Did this go up? And if it did we take action to make that stop?
I think, not to be a police geek, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if like maybe with next year, if we took these 5, moving over and then put Denver just because it's its own thing. I know that this is comparing cities to kind of
We're trying
comparable size, but
like for like-ish, but we could pull Denver's easily, that's not a big deal.
yeah, just to kind of see what we're up against, because we're right next door.
Yeah, that's not a big deal.
I think that one time, every once in a while you'll hear this, and I won't go down a rabbit hole here, but you'll say, well, we can't arrest our way out of this situation, or we can't enforce our way. That can be true and that can be untrue. If you hit the right people and you get the right, and you get them uncut, you take the right person out, you'll see a reduction in your crime.
And we have.
And you can see that. So it's not all arrests, it's not all about arrests, but some of it is. We got to get out there.
So, and then I'll let you continue, but
Please.
I bring it up every year,
Please.
because this is a citizen group, a budget committee group, we're asked to do some things for the city. And so I always ask every year, sometimes twice, I mean, do we need more police officers?
Give my canned answer, but I'll let Dave know.
Yeah.
And you don't have to
I'll
answer
just
it
say-
now, I'm not looking for an answer. It's just
No, I
something
think,
that, you know.
I think it's a few things. I'd love to have more cops. Just, hey, I'd love to have more cops. We could put them to work. But it's also, there are budgetary restrictions. Some of it's budget and then some of it's efficiencies and some of it's looking to see if we're doing smart things with our police officers, or some of these things could be civilianized, like a parking control and things like that. It's stuff that should be civilianized. I'm not sure, but yeah, the short answer, I don't know. What are
Excuse
what
me,
are
I
your
think,
thoughts?
one of the things I like to say is, if we want to get to full staffing and see what that looks like, we're pretty close and we're getting closer every day. That's one thing. Another thing that I think is really, really important is that we need to leverage the technology that's available in order to make our officers more efficient. And I think that's also something that is really huge and something, we're talking with, the city manager's office about, and the budget advisory, not the budget advisory, budget review committee coming up, and we're, asking for some money for additional technology, things of that nature, because we have to leverage the technology that's out there that's exploding to help us, focus energies in the places that we need to focus the energy, whether it's a geographical area, a crime problem, something of that nature. But I think we really need to leverage technology as well to as a force multiplier to help our officers.
Something that you say you bring it up every time you have the police here. I bring it up every time somebody gives me an opening. I just try to remind people and level set some expectations here too. Policing is one aspect of the criminal justice system. We have elected officials that make laws. We have the police. We have corrections. We have
Judicial.
Judges, prosecutors. We have probation and parole. Like, all of these things need to be pulling in the same direction all the time.
Sometimes they're not.
And sometimes they're not.
That's a great point. Thanks for pointing that out. Wow.
If we move on to the next slide on metrics, this is a very, very busy slide. Again, all of these slides are included on the annual report that's on the website, but just a couple highlights. The one thing that's very hard to prevent are crimes against persons, assault calls, things of that nature, because that could be domestic assault, it could be fights. Last year that did go up about 25% on us. Our crimes against property stayed pretty flat, which was fantastic.
We did increase arrests.
Yeah, I was gonna get there.
Thank you, sir.
Our crimes against property did stay fairly flat. And our crimes against society again went up 48% from 500 something to 750. But if you go to the right-hand side bullets, even though our percentage of crimes against persons went up 25%, our arrests also increased by 28%. So we made more arrests for crimes against person than actually were reported, because some of those were old warrants, like you were talking about, a warrant for something that was prior. So we did that's how you level that out, right? That's how we look at it. Motor vehicle thefts decreased by 12%, which was fantastic. And we have a lot of things to thank for that. Our total crimes reported did increase by 11% last year. Now, arrests themselves, I showed you that about 28% on crimes against person went up. That was fantastic. Crimes against property was flat, so were our arrests. That was flat as well. But there's the big one. Crimes against society increased, our arrests increased by almost 50% from the year before, which is indicative of that spike that you saw on the prior slide, which was huge. So on our total crime arrests, which also is a really big deal, increased by 25% from 23 to 24, which means our officers were clearing more calls as well, meaning that they were doing, our detectives or our officers were doing really good investigations and finding the people that committed the crimes and being able to arrest them. So that's one of the reasons that 25% went up. The other metrics we talked about was some Group B offenses, which according to the state are DUIs, liquor law violations, trespassings, disorderly conducts, most of our Muni Code violations. Our arrests for those went up by 28% from 23 to 24, 27%, I'm sorry. We talked about our crimes against society going up. Drug offenses accounted for most of those. That our drug offense arrests went up 54%, which was fantastic. Overall arrests for crimes against society, we already talked about it at a time, 58%. And again, we really attribute those increases to highly visible, proactive police work, guided by what the community expects us to do. And we really think that that's what those increases were for.
How is the increases affecting morale?
Morale is tricky. Go ahead, Dave. Yeah.
A few things I would say. The crime stuff, believe it or not, that has very little to do with the morale of the police department. Police officers, like they get sick and tired of working the night shift. They get sick and tired of working the weekends and holidays and kind of stuff like that. But that's kind of baked into the cake, quite frankly. I will say, not in Inglewood specifically. I can't say that Inglewood specifically, but state laws that have affected policing, that drives morale. That is a morale killer, quite frankly. That does hurt morale. I also remind our officers, one of the things I'd say to them a lot, morale is something we discuss a lot. A lot of that also has to do with your personal decision when you wake up in the morning of how you come to work. There's probably people that you work with bad morale too. And some people show up to work every day and make the best of all of these kind of dynamic situations. So some of it's a personal decision, I will say, but I would say that scrutiny over the past 5 years has driven morale down on policing for sure.
Thank you.
Police officers as a whole really like to go out and do good police work.
Yeah.
As a whole, that's why they became police officers. And that's really hard to do when at every corner, another right of a police officer, quote unquote, is taken away, the loss of qualified immunity.
That's a big one.
That was huge. 217, really, House Bill 217 and 1250 really putting a thumb on police officers. And, no longer does the police officer have the, what they do is, if they do something like, let's say they forget to turn on a body cam, well now, in House Bill 217, it's inferred of officer wrongdoing. That's in the House bill. It's inferred. And so instead of going, man, the guy made a mistake, the officer made a mistake by failing to do that, or something happened. And so when those types of things happen, that really does hurt.
I will say it is also, some of the things in there have also made it easier to sue police officers and sue police departments.
Very much so.
That is extreme, and their post license is at risk on some of these, and it makes it very, very difficult, and we have a little bit of that here. I will tell you, as some of you know, I came from Kansas City, Missouri. Kansas City, Missouri this year, 2025, on May 15th, settled their, I don't know how many cases this was, $18.1 million in lawsuits. Because it's
How much easier?
I think that there's becoming, this is my personal opinion on a soapbox, there's becoming a bit of a cottage industry. Attorneys know that it's kind of easy. And it's, I don't try to focus on the negatives very often, but it is difficult, I'll say, and it affects officers. I'll say that officers in Inglewood don't say, oh, well, they're gonna cover it. Oh, well, it's not that, that's not how they take it. They take it very, very personally.
One of the things I'd really like to point out as well that I wrote down was, our dedicated sales and use tax was about $1.1 million in 2024. We gave you about $1.7 million worth of examples, and we stopped. Because quite frankly, I probably could have kept going. And I say me because I pulled a lot of his stats, but we really probably could have kept going and identified probably a couple $1 million more of things that we believe are based on homelessness, mental health, and addiction that we do on a daily basis.
Thank you.
And that's it. Questions?
I have a couple, sorry, I
Yeah.
don't want to strain your neck.
No, no,
So one thing is mostly just like an annotation preference. For consistency with an example might be the dispatchers. It looks like it was notarized as 1 FTE at 100%, but it's really a workload that it sounds like is being distributed
It is.
across. So
It's fair.
for annotation purposes, and just because this is, to the extent that constituents are willing to look at it, a public-facing document, for accuracy and for clarity, I think it's better to try and report those as, how many dispatchers do we have? 6?
14.
Oh, 14, sorry. So like 14,
8% of each of their time. That's a good point.
And so, and I've noticed for most of the positions, that was how it was outlined. So for dispatch and any of the other positions where that's not the case, if possible, just preference for it to be notarized that way. One other thing is, similarly, another reason why we might want to annotate things in that way, I think anytime constituents see 100% of a position or 100% of a piece of capital equipment is being allocated under these funds, I think we're likely to see additional scrutiny. And so we really want to be sure that 100% of that time really is, like, any time that that piece of equipment is used, it's only being used for these categories. And so for that reason, if there's like any uncertainty or like a police vehicle that's used like 80% of the time for these 2 officers, but potentially, if another vehicle's out of commission for, however long it takes to repair it, we should really err on the side of, I'd rather have more types of inclusions in here than have anything where there's a possibility that there's X amount of time, And one last question that I have is, how do we track calls around these 3 areas, houselessness, addiction, mental health, that don't result in arrests? Because to your point earlier, not all of these calls are gonna result in arrests. And so do we have any additional statistics that may be helpful for grabbing that element of the work that y'all do?
So I can address that just a little bit. I think that's very hard. So let's take those 55,000 calls for service for the year. It's really difficult to have a nexus and say, out of those 55,000 calls, did it relate to somebody experiencing homelessness? Did it relate to somebody experiencing addiction issues? Or did it relate to somebody that, with mental health issues? Every welfare check we go on, we go on welfare checks, 10 times a day, maybe more. There's no way for us to add another keystroke, I guess, to say, that would say this welfare check was for somebody that was intoxicated or, on drugs or experiencing mental health or homeless, and that's why the officer went. But could you infer that most of your welfare checks are due to that? And my inference is yes. You can't make that inference. Now, is that concrete? You can't.
Sure.
I'm just using welfare checks as an example. We go on so many trespassing calls or unwanted person calls. And is it always a teenage kid on the roof of the school that's trespassing? Sometimes. Or sometimes is it a person trespassing in the, doorway of a business or a laundry room of an apartment complex to escape the cold, so I'm being very existential because it's very difficult for us to track those specifically, those three things. Now, can I tell you that my experience as being a police officer for 32 years is that 80% plus of the calls for service I've gone on as a police officer have to do with people in mental health crisis, having addiction issues, and potentially homeless. I can say that for a fact. I can say when I was on night shift, we used to make jokes that the only sober people that I contacted that night were the other cops and the
Person working at
and the person working at 7-Eleven. Maybe. I mean, we used to make jokes that I didn't contact one sober person all night long.
Sure.
And so when I look at you and say, yeah, 32 years of police work, 80+% of my calls for service or the things that I dealt with were issues of homelessness, addiction, and mental health. I can say that for certainty. I mean, when I started working here, we had the day labor businesses, I think Rita would remember, and we ended up legislating them out of the city at some point because of so many problems we had surrounding our day labor businesses with trespassing and alcohol issues and all the things. And so, things just move in different directions.
That's very helpful context. Mostly, I just wanted to make sure if there was a metric that you were aware of that we were highlighting.
The count one, no.
Yeah, that'd be hard.
We've had a lot of discussion around this. And today, this was great. Gentlemen, thank you. I think for me, listening to this, and I don't want to speak for the whole committee, but it seems very obvious to me that you are acting as faithful stewards of these funds. So, I think to the letter of, or the spirit of the ballot measure, it's easy for me to say, yes, they are doing what they should be with the funds, and we're meeting the needs of the community based off of what the ballot measure says. I think we could drown in data trying to get to the letter of the ballot measure, trying to be like, did 67% of this 8-hour shift hit the mark? So I don't think it's worth additional discussion to drill deeper. I think what we've been shown over the last 2 years, and especially tonight, for me, I'm convinced. Like, we have a great team of people at the police department who are working in to the benefit of the public. So, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for the chief and deputy chief? Kevin or Tyson, Rita?
I just want to say thank you. I know that it's been grueling the last couple of years to get to this point. And it's been very helpful for me to see all these metrics. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think this will be one of the sections of our report, which is August 4th. We need to turn it in, or actually I think we read it at council. So I think we'll take what you've given us. We may have an email or two through Tyson just to clarify a couple things, and I think we need to write it and see where we feel we might have a gap. And unfortunately, ballot measures are just, I've never read one I liked. This was one of the only ones I may have liked, but it's a general expectation for very specific work in an unknown area, or a very gray area of, let's call it, law enforcement. So thank you guys. We really appreciate it and what you do for us.
No, we do. Thank you.
For your time, Okay, let's just outline what's in the report. I'll volunteer to write the reserve policy section and we'll clarify what needs to go in there next month.
Bless you.
I've done some reading and I'll go back through our policy. I was hoping Steve was here today because I wanted to ask him, I know he had something he wanted to say and I wanted to ask him kind of what he thought were some of the key ingredients. But I think for the report, I think the sales and use tax initiative or ballot measure and its success should be one. We'll have an opening that James has offered to do and also a close that James has offered to do. I'll do a reserve policy discussion. Is there anything else on the budgetary side that we need to address? Oh, capital improvement budget. So I want to give James that one too, but we'll have to share these. So do you want to sign those tasks tonight and do we miss any topics? I think we're worn out. I think those are the 4 areas, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were asked to do the sales and use tax and reserve policy that I can remember off the top of my head from last year with the city council, and so I think the capital improvements budget is obvious as well. And then what was the 4th one? SUT review, reserve policy, CIP, what was it? Was it 3? 4? It's been a long day.
Well, we were recording you. We can go back and take.
I try not to watch those.
Nah.
So SUT review, reserve policy, capital improvements budget. I guess I didn't miss anything. Open and close. Okay. Anybody want to volunteer? I got James on the open and close. I can help him with that. I'll do reserve policy. I wouldn't mind some help on that.
I mean, I took some time into the reserve policy, so I
Okay,
can
great.
double up on that one.
Good, thank you. So that leaves.
Happy to be assigned to whatever.
Okay, sales and use tax, capital improvements. And I mean, I'll assist on all of them too, so.
Sure.
If you guys want to start writing.
Capital improvement, please.
Okay.
Sure.
Says new stuff.
Happy.
Okay, so Nevin, I'll put you and me on that. And,
I spent time on sales and use tax too, so
yeah, okay, I work in it too, so,
I'll lean on you.
great, I can't, this is gonna be a great report. And then I think, so, let's have a date that we have a draft report, and I don't wanna wait till next meeting.
Okay.
We see what happens, last year was just a lot of work in a few days. Tyson, any advice?
Last year, I believe, you sent me a Google Doc link that I sent out to the group where folks can put stuff. Again, only 2 people, I believe, at a time can be in that document, so if you log in and you see 2 people, log back out.
Did I send you the GoDoc
Make
link?
sure you log out of it when
Yes.
you're not.
Yes, yeah. Yes, I can't create a Google Doc link. And
Okay.
so I would recommend just putting stuff in like a Word document.
I'll send you the template
Perfect.
with the names and everybody's assignment.
And I would recommend that the committees have everything basically done by the July 22nd meeting, and they can use that meeting to finalize the report and kind of talk through any last issues to try and finalize it. Because like you said, last year, I think there was a really crunch of just a couple to try to finish everything in a couple of days, because we will need the within about a week after the meeting.
Do we want to try to have the draft done by the 15th, the week before?
I was gonna say that, but I'm the guy that always misses, well, not always, sometimes I'm past the deadline and it's Friday night and I'm like, no, I need you back to Tyson.
It only gives you 5 days to miss that deadline.
Built in buffer right there.
Yeah, okay, let's do July 15th. Is that fair?
Mhm.
Yep.
And James isn't here, but I'm sure he'll agree. Okay, member's choice. Public Works, Police Department, you're welcome to say anything. Okay, Rita?
I probably don't have anything, although last night we did have a budget discussion during the second half of the study session. Y'all might want to watch part of that.
I was
That
watching
might
it.
be helpful information that you need.
It is helpful. Thank you. Laura, Evan, Jay. Okay, well, this meeting is adjourned. Have a nice evening. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.